before I get into what I prepared for you in today's video, something happened this morning that I need to put on your radar first. China's defense minister, not a spokesperson, not a diplomat, a military general, publicly told Washington that Chinese ships will keep operating in the Strait of Hormuz regardless of Trump's new blockade. His exact framing: China has trade and energy agreements with Iran and others should not interfere. Now, separately, Britain, America's closest ally, said publicly it would not support the blockade, and Trump threatened 50% tariff on any country who supplies Iran weapons, a threat aimed directly at Beijing. China responded by saying tariff wars have no winners. You see, in the space of 24 hours, the Iran blockade became a US-China standoff at sea, with America's own allies refusing to follow. That's the context of everything you are about to hear. Keep it in mind. I want to remind you of something I said in our last video. I said the ceasefire clock was ticking. I said Iran walked out of Islamabad with more leverage than it walked in with. And I said, and I want you to hold this, decision times is not over. That was 2 days ago. Since then, Trump's Navy entered the Strait of Hormuz. A blockade started this morning. Oil crossed $100 a barrel. And Iran looked at the most powerful military on the planet and said 4 words: accept your defeat now. Not a threat, not a verdict. And here is what gets me. Iran said that after Trump's Navy showed up, not before. Think about what that tells you about how Tehran is reading this situation right now. Stay with me, because the last 48 hours didn't just escalate the conflict. They revealed something, and 2 of the things they revealed hit you and I directly in ways most analysts are missing. Now, quick catch up for anyone who missed the last video. 7 weeks of US-Iran war, 800 plus American airstrikes, a fragile 2 weeks ceasefire. JD Vance flew to Pakistan for 21 hours of direct talks. He carried America's final and best offer. Vance flew home with nothing. Now, before I go further, one thing I want to say clearly, because I think it matters. When I talk about this war, I'm not talking about the American people. Most Americans did not want this. Polling shows deep public division on the conflict. Now, even in Trump's own base, the support for this war is fractured. And JD Vance, the same man Trump sent to Islamabad, was reportedly against this war before it even started. This is the Trump's administration's war, not America's war. You see, that distinction is very important, and here is the pattern worth understanding, because these things come from nowhere. Venezuela came first. The Trump administration moved on Venezuelan oil, and by most accounts, it worked. That success helped to embolden what came next. There is even an old video clip of Trump from 30 years ago saying,
"Go in and grab one of their big oil installations, and I mean grab it and keep it."
The man has been thinking about Iranian oil for 3 decades. Venezuela gave him a blueprint. Iran was always the bigger play. Now, I told you then that Iran walked in having already won enough to say no, that its framework, not Washington's, was the starting point for negotiations. I told you that the incentives for escalation was greater than the incentives for any deal. Here is what happened 48 hours after that video. Trump announced a full naval blockade. His navy entered Hormuz, and Iran told the Trump administration to accept its defeat. You see, the clock ran out exactly the way I said it would. But I need to be honest with you, it ran out faster than I expected. And that revision matters, because faster escalation means every government, every business, every household watching oil at $100 a barrel is working with less time than anyone thought they had. Now, we are going to come back to that. But first, let me show you what this blockade actually is. Because what Trump said and what his own military is doing are 2 completely different things. So, the blockade. Trump said on Truth Social, the United States Navy will blockade any and all ships trying to enter or leave the Strait of Hormuz. Any and all. His own military said something different. The US Central Command said the blockade only targets ships going to or from Iranian ports, ships heading somewhere else, free to pass. Then Trump went on Fox News and said the Navy would indeed take any ship that pays a toll to Iran. Now remember, Iran had put a toll of $2 million for any ship passing through the strait. Trump wants anybody who pays that amount blocked. Now CENTCOM said nothing about the tolls. So we have three different definitions of the same blockade from the same government within the same 24 hours. And the legal situation is just as messy. According to NBC News, experts are already questioning whether the Trump administration even has the legal authority to blockade commercial vessels in international waters without the formal declaration of war. This conflict still does not have one. Now, here is the honest picture. In the first hour of this blockade, one sanctioned Iranian tanker just sailed straight through anyway. A second ship turned back 41 minutes after the deadline. A third broadcast itself, drifting off the Iranian coast. So one defied it, one backed down, one just stopped and waited. This is not the image of a decisive superpower action. This is the image of a situation where nobody is fully in control. And I want to be clear, I told you in the last video that Iran was watching every gap in Washington's position carefully. They saw this gap too. Now watch what they did with it. Iran's response came fast and it came from everywhere. The Navy commander called Trump's threats, quote, laughable. They were already tracking every US military movement in the region. The Quds Force commander said the Trump administration and Israel would be expelled from the region without any achievements, just like Yemen expelled them from the Red Sea. A former IRGC commander said Iran is not a place that can be blocked with tweets and imaginary plans. Iran's parliamentary speaker, the same man who sat across from Vance in Islamabad, posted a picture of gas prices near the White House on X and wrote, "Enjoy the current pump figures. Soon you'll be nostalgic for $4 to $5 gas." Iran's armed forces just revealed a formal statement calling Trump's blockade piracy. They said if Iran's ports are threatened, no port in the Persian Gulf and Iranian Sea will be safe. Now read that last line carefully. Not Iranian ports, no ports in the entire Gulf and Arabian Sea. Now that is a direct threat to Saudi Arabia, the UAE, to Qatar, to every Gulf state with a coastline. Iran is saying, if we go down, you go down too. Now, in the last video, I told you to watch Saudi Arabia's posture as a key indicator. I said how Riyadh responds after Iran bombed the East-West pipeline would tell us everything. Now, here is what happened. Saudi Arabia repaired that pipeline to full capacity. The backup route that bypasses Hormuz, carrying up to 7 million barrels a day. Qatar lifted maritime restrictions. You see, the Gulf states are not joining this blockade. They are building exits. That is not solidarity with Washington. That is self-preservation, and it is exactly what the Saudi indicator was pointing at. Now, look at who else pushed back on this blockade. Spain's defense minister, senseless. The Kremlin will negatively impact international markets. China's foreign ministry doesn't serve the common interest of the international community. The European Commission president, greatly damaging. Even Pope Leo criticized neo-colonial violations of international law. Trump called him very weak on crime. Now, when the Pope, Spain, China, Russia, Gulf states are all saying the same thing, and Trump administration is standing alone with Israel, that is not a coalition. That is isolation wearing a uniform. And here is the layer most people are missing. Netanyahu was the one who pitched this war to Trump in a private situation room meeting in February. He brought a video montage of replacement Iranian leaders. He sold a plan. Trump bought it. The Trump administration is partly following a playbook written by someone else. And that someone is now the least popular figure in American public opinion on this conflict. According to Pew Research polling, 59% of Americans have little or no confidence in Netanyahu. That is the partner Trump is standing alone with. Now, here is where it gets serious. In the last video, I told you that China's moves in the coming months is the most important geopolitical indicator to watch. I said China and Russia vetoing the UN resolution on Hormuz was not just a diplomatic maneuver. It was a signal about the new world order being built. Here is your update. According to CNN, US intelligence assessments indicate that China is preparing to ship man-portable air defense systems, manpads, to Iran through third-party countries in secret. Trump said China will get big problems if it gets through with it. China denied everything. But think about what a manpad does. It's a shoulder-fire missile system designed to take down low-flying aircraft, the kind of aircraft protecting US ships in the Strait. A US naval blockade is one equation when you are facing Iranian patrol boats and mines. It is completely a different equation when Iranian forces might have Chinese systems capable of targeting the helicopters covering those ships. This blockade just got harder, and the intelligence assessments say it is moving fast. Now, I need to bring this home, and I mean that literally. The UN's Food and Agriculture Organization issued the warning today. Their chief economist said if normal traffic doesn't resume through Hormuz soon, the world could face a food crisis comparable to COVID-19. Not like a regional energy shock like COVID-19. Now, here is the part that most people haven't fully grasped yet, and it's the most important thing I'm going to say in this entire video. You might be looking at the news right now and thinking, the shelves still look okay, prices are up but manageable, the worst hasn't arrived yet. You are right. But here is why that is not reassuring, it is terrifying. Ships move slow. The tankers carrying oil and fertilizer that arrived in ports around the world over the last few weeks, those ships left the Gulf before the war started. They were already at sea before the blockade began. According to JP Morgan analysts, the last pre-war tankers have now delivered their cargo. The buffer is gone. What comes next are the ships that had to navigate a closed or restricted Hormuz during the war. The ones that were delayed, rerouted, turned back. Those consequences are still in the water, still moving towards port. The full economic pain of this blockade hasn't docked yet. Between 30 to 40% of the world's traded nitrogen fertilizers pass through Hormuz. Fertilizers that farmers need right now during the planting season. When they don't arrive, farmers plant less. When farmers plant less, harvests shrink. When harvests shrink, food prices climb, not in weeks, in months. The FAO reported that the window to prevent that chain reaction is closing very fast. And there is a detail CNN reported that I want you to sit with. Medicine intended for 20,000 people in Sudan stranded in Dubai. Over 600 boxes of therapeutic food that could save more than 1,000 severely malnourished children in Somalia stuck in India. Not because of the war directly, because Hormuz is closed. Because of the war, those children had no vote in. In the last video, I said Africa did not take part in the negotiations in Islamabad, but Africa is paying the bill. That was just days ago. Since then, it got worse. There are now 2 blockades on the same waterway, Iran's original closure, then Trump's new one starting this morning. The delayed ships are still coming. And according to the UN, a closing window before the planting season becomes a food crisis that doesn't recover quickly. Now, quick one before I close. In the last membership pack, I said there was one card Iran was still holding that I couldn't put in that video. I said it was the most important piece of the Islamabad story. That card was China. Specifically, the US intelligence was signaling about Beijing's intentions before it became public news. That analysis went to Patreon members and YouTube members before CNN reported it. You see, I'm not saying this to pat myself on the back. I'm saying this because the next members pack covers what happens in the last 48 hours. including the one development today that I still can't unpack fully publicly. And if the China-Iran arms story is moving as fast as the intelligence says, that piece matters a lot. You see, everything you need is right here in this video. But if you want to be ahead of the next move before it hits the news, you know where to go. The link of our membership is in the description below. Now let me close with what I got right, what I missed, and what's coming next. In our last video, I made 3 predictions. I'm going to account for all 3. I said the ceasefire was fragile and escalation was more likely than a deal. The new blockade came in 48 hours. That's correct. I said Iran would widen the geographic scope if attacked again. Iran just threatened every port in the Gulf and Arabian Sea in one statement. That's correct. I said Trump's domestic pressure was building. American consumer confidence just hit a record low this month, according to a University of Michigan survey. The anti-war wing of Trump's own coalition, including voices close to Vance, is getting louder. Even among his own supporters, this war is contested. That's correct. Now, here is my revision. I said the most likely scenario was a managed stalemate, slow escalations, periodic ceasefires, no resolution. I think that is where this ends up long term. But the short term is moving faster and harder than I expected. The blockade in 48 hours caught me off guard. I thought it would take longer. You see, that revision matters because faster escalation means less time for everyone, governments, businesses, communities, to prepare for what comes next. Now, there is a proverb I always like to use that says, until the lion learns to write, every story will glorify the hunter. In our last video, I asked, but who is writing the peace framework right now? The answer has not changed. Iran is still writing. Trump just added a naval chapter. And the people paying for every bitch, the farmers who need fertilizer, the families watching prices climb, the children waiting for medicine stuck in a Dubai warehouse. They are not in Washington, they are not in Tehran, they are everywhere else. So here is what I want you in the comments. What does Africa need to do structurally? What the world needs to do structurally? In trade, in infrastructure, in diplomacy, to make sure this never happens to us the same way again. If this is where you come to understand what's actually happening, share it with one person today. Not for the algorithm, for the conversation. Stay sharp, stay curious, and keep watching the lens. I'm Asangwa Luis. You're watching Africa Today, and this is the Strategic Lens. If you haven't joined our membership, I don't know what you're waiting for. If you haven't subscribed, please. We are currently about 474,000 subscribers. We really want to reach 500,000 subscribers. Most of you watching haven't subscribed yet. What are you waiting for? Please subscribe, it costs nothing. See you in my next video. Bye.